Hey, welcome everyone to another Energetic Arts Live video. Today is a bit of an impromptu video. I'm just going to sort of wing it today. I finally found Andy, if you saw us yesterday, and he's going to be joining us very soon, hopefully this time. And we're going to sort of go over the topic yesterday, which was foundations in frequency. And at the same time, whoever decides to join us today, we might have a chat uh, all together and see what else comes up in here he is. What else? There he is. How you going?
Hey, buddy. How are you?
Good to see you, man. Glad we finally caught up again.
Yeah, sorry. I just if I look a little bit off, I just watched there's a new Qantas commercial
Hmm.
that's like basically advertising like a post-vaccination world.
Right.
Oh shit, one
Hang on.
sec. My
Sorry,
phone's just
I got things jumping all over the place here. Hang on a sec. Okay. Sorry about that. Minor technical difficulty. Let's see if these work again. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, you were saying about the Qantas Post commercial. Hmm, that was interesting. Let's try that again.
Am I back?
Yeah,
Sorry.
that was weird.
Yeah,
There was a glitch on my
don't
side, I
know.
think.
Yeah, don't know what it did. Yeah, anyway, it was just a commercial about showing people traveling again and just, got me a little teary. Just showing
Yeah.
people visiting their families and, just the joy that travel brings to people. So
Hmm.
I was like, oh, I shouldn't have watched that right before. I wasn't expecting to have a cry from a Qantas commercial. You know what I mean? But as you know, it's a very emotional topic, right? How we deal with all this stuff that we're dealing with at the moment, and the kind of the good and the bad and the ugly side of all of it, that none of it really makes too much sense. But hey, it is what it is, and
Mm.
so yeah, it was just a touching little ad. Anyway, no, enough about that. So if I look a little puffy, that's why.
Yeah, no, I can. Fair enough, and I know you. I know the background a little bit to that. Why it would make you that way. So
Yeah. So yeah,
I
so
feel
here
for
we
you,
are,
man.
and
I'm.
yeah, hey, I feel for everyone. You know what I mean? It's
Mm, mm.
I don't think there's anyone having an easy time with any of this stuff at the moment. So
No, and I don't know if we want to hear from those people. It's like, it's like,
oh yeah,
how's it going for you? Oh, it's great. Life's fantastic.
well, it was funny.
Nothing's going
It
wrong.
was funny, right? Because like for anyone that cares or whatever, like I work in the travel industry, and we had a big meeting, like a big tourist a big thing put on by Tourism Australia for basically everyone in the industry to get together in Sydney. This was kind of pre the last set of like lockdowns or the second wave, whatever. And there was this, room with like thousands of people in it, and everybody affected slightly differently by this situation. And were some people who have really high end boutique style product that take a small group somewhere, and it's they're dealing with like rich Australians that would normally be going overseas and spending $40,000 on a holiday in Europe are getting all this new interest in their product, etc. And they're going, "Hey, this is the best thing that's ever happened to us," you know. And I'm like, "You're saying that in the wrong. You're
Mm,
saying that in the wrong room." You know what I mean? With like
mm,
mostly people who are shutting down their businesses or remortgaging homes. And
mm,
anyhow, we don't have to turn
mm,
this into a discussion on that topic, but I guess it's what we're all dealing with at the moment, isn't it? In one way or another, right?
yeah, for sure. And like yesterday's topic was foundation in frequency, and it's like there's definite change in frequency going on.
Mm.
The radio station is changing, and it's like we're in the static right now between those stations, and I don't know, it's like some things I think I can predict being in this new future that's we're breaking into the paradigm shift,
Hmm.
and other things you just think, you know is is that coming through as well? Like maybe that shouldn't be coming through, or so it's just like everything's fluxing and changing so much. It's like, where's this all going? And so there's a lot of uncertainty,
Yeah.
you know, and and psychologically, we know uncertainty usually is associated with fear in most people's mind, and fear is associated with death, and so uncertainty can equal death for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Not necessarily physical death, but death in terms of my old view of the world and how I lived is completely going to be changed up.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I think like we have had a pretty good run overall, like the last,
Mm,
obviously there's everywhere in the world there's people being affected by all kinds of issues, but this, really is truly been something I think that kind of reminds everyone how interconnected we all are, and whatever your beliefs are on how we got here and what the intent, and if there was intent, it's like whatever we think it is or whatever anyone's story is about it is one piece of a huge puzzle that
mm,
we can never that we'll never be able to truly um, unravel or get the full picture. I just think we don't have the capacity to. But that what it should remind all of us of is that we're completely intertwined and interconnected, and it's truly is. It, there is a topic on our top. There's a vibrational frequency that is affecting all of us in one way or another, and we're all reacting to it differently and physically, emotionally. So yeah. Anyhow, we won't turn this into a COVID sort of a thing. Everyone's bored
no,
of
no.
that.
I think we're all a little fatigued. Yeah. Um, I think everyone's sort of ready for whatever this new paradigm is. It's like, well, come on, let's just get on with it now. So, maybe it would be good to talk about. We mentioned a few things on the phone the other day
Mhm.
associated with frequency, and there were some interesting things in there, like we're talking about sound and music, and
Mm.
you mentioned chanting, and in the video I talked about levitation through sound, and these are interesting things because for me they just feel like the tip of an iceberg of what's going to be you know coming out and being more talked about in the future.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I think, it was funny. I kind of went down, I think I kind of went down a little YouTube rabbit hole a bit the other day, just when, because I think you shared a couple things in the group, and I'm not sure if it was what you shared or if it was the algorithm that kind of led me down like a little path. And it was interesting because when you first sort of brought up the topic, I was thinking, geez, I got like hey, I'm gonna be a passenger on this ride because I don't
Mm,
I don't really it didn't right away kind of spark something. But then as I sort of was watching the video, I think one of them was like talking about literally like like the Big Bang and like the start of the universe and sound and how sound was part of this
mm,
um, thing. And then that kind of took me down, and I don't think this was in the videos you posted, but I somehow ended up on like a like a crop circle thing. Well, that wasn't in what you posted, was it? Like the crop circle thing?
it could have been part of, yeah, I think I sent you two videos.
Yeah, so like, it was talking about the video I was watching was talking about how like, these, like the harmonics, the sound, because I think in the one you were showing it was talking about like
Yeah,
harmonics and sound and the geometric patterns and everything, right? And and
yes,
and and where it
yeah.
kind of led me on the algorithm was, how some of these like the crop circle stuff and whatever you believe about that. Some people think, hey, really
Mm.
clever rednecks in a field just pushing over
With a
with a
board,
board,
yeah.
but then like some of the videos I was watching, it was like, like microwave, like waves and they were like able to like record sound that was happening in the area at the time that had these vibrational like fields that were blowing out like the nodes of the stalks of whatever grain and wheat that was in that, you know what I mean? So I was just like watching it going like, okay, well, this is a rabbit hole, you know, which it was like absolutely
Yeah.
fascinating, right? And it's,
Hmm.
from a kind of very like core, like a very simple um, understanding of like what we do, what we know and can prove from science around, like you see, like I just saw the other day a friend of mine who's pregnant, and there was something on their Instagram, and hey, Louise, hi,
Hey Louise, how you going?
and there was someone that was like playing sound to their unborn baby, right? And
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
and they made some joke about like, oh, my wife thinks it's such and such, but it's actually like, yeah,
Mozart,
yeah, but it's actually like Alex
Terence
Jones.
McKenna.
You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah, like it was something like that. You know what I mean? Like there was a meme about it, and then like someone on my Instagram like did their own version of it, and I'm like, hey, and it made me go down the rabbit hole a bit. And I was reminded of this video series that we came across because I started thinking about music and vibration and sound, and
Mm,
it reminded me of like when I was a kid and my sister went to this like church camp, right, for like a weekend. It wasn't a church that we were involved in, but it was her friends were all going to this church, and they one of the things that this particular church was like teaching against was like anti like rock and roll and anti alternative music, because this was in the late 90s and there was, grunge
mm,
and Nirvana and like these bands that was like, hey, there was this wave of like rebellion that was
yeah.
created through sound, right? Through sound and music
Yes. Yeah.
was shifting people, or what it was almost doing was being a guide through people as they went from kids to through adolescence into through their developmental journey, right? Music
Hmm.
can act as like a guide or a mentor, right? In like through
Hmm.
that we all go through. And and so one of the things that this particular church was really teaching them was like, look, you can't listen to this stuff, and it's going to have this like crazy effect on you, and da 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 da.
It's the
And
devil.
yeah, well, and it was really funny because she had come back from the church camp and was talking about this video that they watched. It was called Hell's Bells, right? Hell's Bells.
Mm.
I'll never forget it because it was a significant, like, it was like, when you have like an old record that you like find, one of your parents have it, or a friend gives it to you, and then this is like sends you down a rabbit hole searching, right? And because like what
Mm.
some people, like probably I think a lot of the people on this group remember is before we had the fact that you could think of a song and then be listening to that song a minute later by asking Siri to play it or
Mm.
searching
Mm.
it up. Or it
Mm.
didn't used to be that way, you know? You used to have to go out there
Yep.
and look through records and find and search. And if the record store that was in your neighborhood didn't have XYZ record, you could put in an order for it, but you might be waiting months or years for something you read about in a magazine or heard about from someone else. So we didn't have that. You know, we take for granted now that sound that literally is a thought away. I can think of a song, and
Yes.
within a minute, within a second, that song's playing, and that's resonating in my being, right? Versus this,
And sorry, just I just want to say like, and thank God, because how many times you wake up in the morning with this song in your head, you get a little bit of it and you can't think of it, and then you can go, "Hey Siri, what's the song that sounds like that that that?" And it'll search it and bring it up for you, or Alexa or whatever, or
yeah,
Google,
yeah,
and then
right.
and then you can listen to it like in the moment.
So, and but in the old days, what you had to do is hear about a movie like Hell's Bells, right? That they were showing at church to try and turn people off of rock and roll. And like she's talking, like they come back and they're like, "Oh, and we watched this thing and it was crazy." Da, 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 da. And I was like, "Sounds awesome," you know, because I'd had like a little
Where
taste
do I
of,
find this?
I'd already like, been up late and heard of like bands like the Sex Pistols and the Ramones, because they played that stuff late at night on Much Music in Canada, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is like the, it awoke something inside of me. It wasn't what you hear. It wasn't John Cougar Mellencamp on the radio. It was something
Mm.
else that literally like lit a fire inside of me,
Stirred you.
right? And
Yeah.
I went,
Yeah.
whoa, wait a second. You want to
What
go
is that?
towards it, right? Rather than most people going, oh God, get me
Mm.
away from that. I was going, wait a second, what's that? What are they saying? They sound like they're saying something important, And
Mm.
and it was funny. So this particular video was available at like this Christian bookstore. They had a rental section where you could go in and borrow book, like a little Christian library, and you could go in, borrow books, CDs, and we went in and borrowed a copy of Hell's Bells and went home and watched it. And some of the greatest bands ever that I still listen to this day, I discovered on this film. And you can actually go and watch on YouTube. You can look it up, Hell's Bells, and it's like got the thing, which is like the guy playing the music to the plant, like playing like Iron Maiden to the plant, and the plant's like dying. You know what I mean? And at the time, you're going like, this is absolutely like ludicrous. This band is awesome, And but they're basically saying like, hey, this sound has an effect on your
Mm.
being, and
Yes.
like I look back at that and I laugh and I go, a lot of those bands and their lyrics and their story and the Slayer, like a band that's like people think are like Satan worshippers and this you go, well, a lot of it's like super tongue in cheek. Um,
Hmm.
but you kind of go, actually, like when you start to like investigate, like now kind of looking back at it, go, maybe there was more to that, maybe if you're not listening to it from a tongue-in-cheek place or with a mindset where you kind of understand that this is theater and this is theatrical and they're putting on a performance and they're a business. It's a business, and they're marketing to a particular crowd a product like a horror film. People who make horror films aren't horrible people. They just have a wild imagination and need to create something. And but it's like if we start to worship that product that they've created, we can put ourselves in some crazy states, and
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, that was kind of like where I was, where the just the topic itself sort of like led me, and how for me myself, like when I was when you're an angry teenager, music can be fuel for that, and it
Mm-hmm.
can create, you know, the sound, the resonance of these. All it is 26 letters rearranged to make up the lyrics, and then these vibrational frequencies that can be put together in a certain pattern can literally shift someone's life into another direction, right? So
Mm-hmm. Yep.
it's like when you go really down the rabbit hole on what sound and resonance and um, how that affects a human being, you go, oh my God, this is actually it's a black hole of,
Mm.
uncertainty, like, and according to some people, it's the whole universe, right? It all came out of sound. And apparently, not that I try and decode the Bible or too many old religious texts, but you know, there's some people on YouTube that go, well, this is what this is saying, that it was sound, and that got us here in the first place. So yeah, that was just kind of was my initial experience with the topic and reflecting on what it kind of meant to me. But well, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I didn't unfortunately get to listen to um the discussion you guys had yesterday, or where you kind of went with it. But I'd love your thoughts on, or what inspired you to think of that as a topic of discussion.
Um, all right. Well, I'll just say these two things first on sound because it just bolts on to everything you've said and it'll lead us into the next thing. Because I mentioned in the video yesterday before I got on, I was thinking, God, I'm not even sure how to tackle this because it's so abstract. If we're talking about vibration, sound, frequency being the building block of everything that we know to be real, including matter, then like where do you start and where do you go with it? You can sort of talk about anything and it all
Hmm.
relates. You can tie it all back in at any time,
Hmm.
right? Because it's all based there. And I said to Deb, like, I'm not sure if I can really, I don't know what to say because it's so vast and it's so abstract. And she said, well, Brett Anderson, you're talking about the abstract is your forte. And I'm like, yeah, but,
It's like, yeah, but I don't want to give them
this
word
is,
salad. I want to
you got to give them something. So um, I remember being at a workshop in Sydney years ago, and this was I mentioned this in one of my older videos. It was called "The Language of Impact" by Joel Roberts, and he was a guy who was on Talkback. I'm not sure what it was. It was in LA, KNBC, not NBC, something radio, Talkback Radio, and for 15 years it was the number one Talkback radio. And so whenever he had all sorts of people on there, whether it was senators or entrepreneurs or movie stars or whatever, people of influence. And when they started to talk about what they were up to, he had this way of translating like a whole paragraph or conversation into a soundbite. And he would feed that back to the person. They go, yeah, that's what I do. And so he had this thing where he had an injury because the sound engineer hit the wrong button and blew his eardrum out, and so his career was over. He's like, what am I going to do now? So he went into on the speaking circuit and started to teach entrepreneurs how to distill what they did, their product service, into a soundbite. So if you ever got the opportunity to go on to Oprah, you have 30 seconds, you could nail it and get
The
your message
elevator
out to
pitch,
millions of people.
the elevator pitch,
Yeah,
in a way.
but like even better,
Yeah.
like this is kind of like something, what do you do? And you just smack them in the mouth and they go, wow, that was the kind of idea.
That's, by the way,
And I
something
met
that
this lady there.
I was just going to say, for any of the entrepreneurs
Yeah.
in our group, that's like,
Mm.
that's, I do is obviously not nearly as great as this guy probably does it, but I have a whole process that I take people through that I've coached in entrepreneurship about how to take what they do in and get it into that succinct, like where it's a very, very clear your vision, your mission, and your values in your business, and do when people can do that, what they see is all of a sudden it transforms their organization, if it's an organization, because it
Mm.
becomes this foundational vibration that
Yes.
everything that everyone's aligned to, that it's a frequency that vibrates,
Yep.
that if you ain't vibrating at that frequency as a customer, client, member of the team, you sort of bounce off, right? And so you get this
Yes.
snowball that starts to, that attracts the other people that are in the organization, the people who are around it, your target market, your customer, and it's an orchestra that starts to come together, right? So
Yep.
that's something,
Yep.
if we have entrepreneurs in the group, we can run a little fun workshop one day on that.
Absolutely. And I think especially now under all the circumstances, I think a lot of people, well, they're looking around going like, what can I do now? And maybe I don't want to go back to a job like the lady yesterday. She's like, I don't think I want to go back to this rat race. My values are shifted and my frequency's changed. And now I know I need to have a income and a lifestyle and sort of thing, a livelihood, but I don't know what that is. So, and I immediately, and you would think this too,
Yeah.
do something, you know, build up, invest, all that sort of stuff. So, so I'm at one of these workshops trying to learn this skill on how to create sound bites so you can lock in that
And so when you
frequency
say the
and
soundbite,
attract the right
is
people.
is it an actual, is it language, or is there sound involved within that particular thing as well? Or
No, so in this instance, he was talking like a tagline. It was
yeah,
like your tagline, right?
yeah.
So it would be like Nike, just do it, you know, something like that, and it
Well,
would sum up everything that you are and what you did in that short space.
just to touch on this, because, and maybe this is slightly off topic from what we're saying, but I actually don't think it is because of the particular company I'm going to discuss. But when we, because I think there are some entrepreneurs in here, you have a look at like a couple of companies, right? You have a look at a Microsoft and you have a look at an Apple, right? Both, by the way, great, like from whatever you think about the founders and the people, like when it comes to evaluating a company, you go, two great companies, you know?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
one,
they're successful.
but one, for example, is one that has like a cult-like following of people who go, that's me. That brand talks to me and it speaks to me. And I'm not a computer person, but you know what? I'm willing to spend the $3,000 for the MacBook Pro, even though it's my Facebook machine, but I'm going to do it because that's me. And they did that through the way that they took the culture and their why of why they existed, and actually like that became part of their message, right? So if you think back to
Mhm.
like, you know, if you take two, like anyone from the not late 90s, early 2000s will remember, while Microsoft was like Intel Inside, right? It was like on all the computers, Intel Inside, right? It was like basically talking about the microchip or whatever that was in the computer. And if you were a real computer nerd, that was something that you kind of like resonated with, versus Apple on the other side, who was going, put 1,000 songs in your pocket, think different. You know what I mean? Like an Apple ad would be like, think
Mhm.
different. And you're like, isn't this a computer company? You know what I mean? Like, shouldn't this be a boring, like,
Mhm.
story about a computer?
Great
You know
box.
what I mean? It's like, no, no,
Yeah.
no. This is about what, why this thing exists, how it's going to transform
Mm.
your life by using it. So there's like so much in that, right? And by the way, just to touch back on what I was talking about earlier on music, because we're talking about sound and resonance. Remember when the fucking iPod came out, and like, from being a guy that would like, my favorite bands were my favorite bands before I heard them, because I was reading about them
Mhm.
in a skateboard magazine going, they sound awesome. That's my favorite band. I haven't heard them yet, but I can just tell by this review that that's my favorite band, and would wait for months for like that record to turn up in my local record shop. And versus like the iPod revolution, which is like, think about a song and now it's playing. Boom. You know what I mean? So
Mhm. Mhm.
and how that experience gets given to you through marketing and messaging, which, some people may think that that's um, not, uh, they have their feelings about marketing and whatever, but I go, no, no, like, to me, like, I want to be singing along with the brands that I am invested in, because, hey, let's all be honest. We all got to eat. We all got to choose some device to check our emails on and be able to do this through. And if it's someone that we resonate with because their message speaks to us and then we feel aligned with it, of course we're going to do that, versus like something that just passes over us because it's vibrating at a different frequency, right? So the fascinating thing about this topic is that it actually touches everything, right? It touches all of the
Mhm.
quadrants that we live in. It touches all of the different parts of our life, because language, because we're constantly, even as like an entrepreneur or whatever, we're communicating our message, and that's a
Mhm.
sound and that's vibrating. So it's like, how do we um, take our life's work or our vision for why we're here, that's greater than who we are, and put that in a way that it's a vibration that we send out into the universe, like the song of a bird that's singing and saying, hey, I've got my seed to sow, right? Because that's what birds are doing when they're singing, and going, who's
Yeah.
attracted, who, right?
Mm.
So there's a whole skill set that comes with an understanding of that,
Absolutely.
right? It's
Yeah.
something that
Yeah.
we learn. Musician, like I'm not a musician. I'm a music lover. The biggest thing I'm missing right now during this whole thing is live music and being in a crowd and
Live
bumping up
performances.
against
Yes.
people, and the sound that hits you and makes you feel alive, right? I I don't make music, so when I watch people that do it, and when I'm affected by it, I'm just like, there's like the awesomeness, and I don't just mean that as like that was cool. I mean like it's awesome. You're like, whoa, right? It hits you in all of your being, and you go, but like you can do, if you don't have that particular skill set, that line of development extremely um, tuned. We do it. We resonate with sound in all of our work, through our language, through our written word, through the emails that we type. Because when I read an email that you send me, it resonates in my being because it's my own mind. I'm hearing, I'm reading what you're
Mhm.
writing, and so you go. The more you kind of explore this topic, you go, oh, the universe, the human universe is sound. It truly
Mm.
is, right? Um, so sorry I'm sure I cut you off again, like I always do, but go,
It's all right, man. You got to express yourself,
keep going.
you know. So I mean, yeah. So back into the workshop with Joel Roberts, and I meet this lady, and she's a ear fitness
Ear
specialist.
fitness.
And I'm like, ear fitness? What the hell is ear fitness? And she says, I help people with hearing disability and all that sort of stuff. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then she went on and asked me this question, and I've never thought about it up until this point. And I'm like, I think I don't know, I would have been early 30s at the time. 30 years of my life, never heard this question, never thought about it. And she said, what is the first sense? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, you got five senses. Some say six. What's the first one? I'm like, I don't know. And I thought, what's my dominant sense?
No,
And I was looking at
what's
her, so
literally the first one?
exactly. She said it's your hearing because you're in the womb. It's all dark. Maybe you have kinesthetic. You're feeling things, but the first sense you start to develop is sound, is hearing sound, and that kind of blew me away. So then I started looking at, pictures of the inner ear and the little bones in the ear, and then it works out that those bones are in fish. You know, the fish that were in the ocean before humans ever were on the land, before anything was on the land. This goes back to
Prehistoric.
pre-Jurassic, prehistoric, right? So I'm like, holy shit, this technology that we use to hear things is ancient, right? And it's been developed over millions of years. And I thought, like, okay. And then I jumped over to, we talk about sound and vibration. And okay, yes, there's a lot communicated through sound. But then if you evolve sound, it turns into light, right? And so, and I'm not even sure how it does that. I'm sure it changes frequency, just like ice would turn into water, turn into a gas, right? And then you think about, well, that's a bit abstract too. Like, how do I relate to that? It's like, well, okay, look at your computer, your phone, your device you're watching this on, and this is all everything you're seeing and hearing in a visual and audio that you're interpreting with your brain and making sense and relating it to your personal stories in your life throughout all your space and time that you've been here, in whatever configuration your brain's made up into. That's all coming through the airwaves over the internet. And if you go back to the 80s, war games, 1, 2, play a game, and they put the phone in the modem, if you could go back and hear what was coming through, you'd hear ring, dong, 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 and so all of those little blips, ons and offs, ones and zeros, all stacked together through sound, make up all this. And then they go a step further. So then, that light eventually collapses into matter. So everything's based on frequency, on sound, right? And what really inspired me to want to get into this, yeah, right? Yeah. And so what really inspired me when I sent you those videos was they're talking about ancient history, prehistory history, talking about temples in Egypt and the pyramids and the Sphinx. And, if you look at some of those in that genre of um, those videos talking about that time, then you've got, this network of pyramids around the planet that are aligned with constellations in the stars. There's this presupposition that it goes back to either an ancient civilization that we can't even really understand yet because maybe we're not up to the development level to perceive how they lived and how they were able to do what they do, or something coming from somewhere else and putting all this here way before the current culture that we have, that we understand as this is how life is. And they're talking about the temple of Osiris and how it's got these ponds of water all through it. And if you look at it and how it's designed, it looks like a circuit, it looks like a big microchip, like built on the ground. And so there's stories that when people came into that chamber, because the water would act as a conductor for the frequency, that people would come in and, absorb whatever frequency was being put out in that space. And it would, like you said, it would affect them in whatever ways. And then they would take that state out into their world and live with that state. And so what it pointed towards for me was that there was this culture, whatever it was, had a really clear understanding of all this stuff. They weren't just going, oh, that's a cool idea, or, it wasn't a new age love and light concept. It was like, no, we understand this is the basis of everything. So let's start making our changes, or let's start acting on this level first, because we know how it unfolds out into matter and what effects it's going to have over space and time and people and everything in it. So that was something that I wanted to touch on, because one thing that really frustrated me for so long, especially growing up in school and learning about history, especially in ancient Egypt, when they talk about how the pyramids were built and stuff like that, and there's all these weird stories, and really no one had any clue, and none of it really made any sense, is that there seems to be this massive gap between people or beings that really understood this and the mechanics of it and how to use it, and people that were completely unaware of it and were just being affected by it. And so I thought that kind of relates to perhaps what's happening today as well. There's a lot of opinions, there's a lot of people like butting heads, because it's like, how can you not see it from my point of view?
Yeah, how come you're not affected by the sound bites that I'm hearing the way I am and that have affected my worldview? How can we be on such different pages of the story?
Yeah.
Because, hey, yeah, and here, let me share this sound clip with you, or this little bit of thing to consume, and wait a second, how come you resonating differently with that, right? Like, it's like, it's kind of going on right now. It's just like, and especially when I think about earlier tonight, I had it was a conversation about something COVID related and vaccine related with a friend of mine over text. And I was trying to find this hilarious like meme, right? This hilarious video that someone had sent me, which was like this dude that was like dressed as a woman with this like toilet paper like bra on and like a wig, and he's like basically like I'm a Johnson and Johnson girl, like blah blah blah. Like anyway, it was because we were talking about like which vaccines, blah blah blah. Anyhow, and then I started searching for it, and I'm like, I can't find it because there's literally like that was like 3 weeks ago. I'm like, there's been so much like so many sound bites and content and so much stuff that's like being created and just like blasted out into the universe through like these devices. I'm like, oh, it's gone. I'm like, if I come across it again, I'll send it to you. But I'm like, right? So it's fascinating, and so I think back to like what you're discussing in that stuff about Egypt and all that, and that's like a culture that I've always been absolutely like fascinated with, and you clearly go, okay, they had whatever was going on, they had some like incredible understanding of this like what was happening between the stars and sound and everything that you go that I think some of the scientists today still look at and go how, and we can't quite explain how at that time they were able to
Mm,
make these pinpoint precision placements of things and how things lined up. And what I've always been fascinated by that culture, but what I've never um, tried to do or is like think that I have any chance of like figuring it out. Like I've always just gone, again, whoa, that's awesome, and this is incredible. But like I see some of the people in content that's out there that are like giving their interpretation of it and explaining it, and I'm always just like, whoa. I've touched on it before, like my sort of path in the spiritual realm is the brown rice one, the really like simple
mm, mm,
simple stuff. So that's kind of like seeing that, but you go, clearly it was part of their like spiritual development and part of their creation story, and like their whole culture was just like steeped in that, because otherwise it wouldn't, they wouldn't have these like monuments that were the only things that seemed to last. And like where you bury yourself, I think is pretty says a lot about what was happening in the culture. And to us, like we look back into it in like in this it's essentially a time capsule that we look into and kind of like go, what, like what were they doing? Or I do anyway. I go, because
mm,
I've chosen like it's such a simple path in it's like I go, it's almost the opposite like strategy around how to tackle the unknown, because that's like
mm, mm,
whatever it is they were doing, I don't think they got the answer. You know what I mean? I think they were kind of
mm,
working it out and working through it. Um,
mhm,
but so you go, okay, so that's this whole other way to tackle the big question, which I think is something like, what is it that comes forth? Like what the fuck is all this? You know what I mean? Like they tackled it in their way, and it was somehow like
mm,
trying to figure out the connections and almost like honoring the connections and bowing in a way, because one of the things that I think is like where I'm not an expert, but where I can add some salt and pepper to the conversation is around like how sound resonating in a spiritual practice and how that might have an effect on our being, and I go, wow, they were doing it in this such like amazing way that it was like they were building these whole monuments, or like what is equivalent to like the biggest skyscraper in the world at the time, in almost to bow to this great
mm,
question or this great unknown, you know? And sorry, it wasn't. I forget how we were where we were going with the sound and the resonating in the Egyptian part.
So yeah, so in the Temple of Osiris, there was shaped like a
Mm,
circuit
mm,
board, and
mm.
you look at churches
Yep,
and
yep, yep,
temples;
yep,
they're
yep,
all
yep,
follow similar patterns.
yep, yep, yep. So like, so just to add my little to it, which is, as I said, boring brown rice sort of version of it, of probably what they were trying to achieve in some way, right? Which was to go back to what we've touched on before, realizing the connection that was always already there, right? To the infinite, right?
Hmm.
And one of the things that I thought about when I was watching one of those particular videos about the Egyptian stuff and how those shapes and they relate to sound and how they're used like over and over again in these different cultures, it's like what they're sort of doing is admitting to an other power, right? They're admitting to something bigger than themselves, right?
Hmm.
It's a and that's and that sounds like, oh, of course, right? But most of us, the way we're actually behaving is like we're the what, like we're responsible. You know what I mean? Like this was our, like we're this is here because of me. I'm self-made. You know what I mean? Like when I see that, I just always go, oh, come on. Like this is all other power, right? It's
Hmm.
something else that we can look to or bow to, not understand it necessarily, but to bow to it and to acknowledge it, right? And so and it's funny, like kind of where I went down on this in my own little rabbit hole, like watching the videos you sent, and where it took me was, one of the I started thinking about in like our style of like Buddhism and Zen, we have like a cousin, right? Which is another sort of like style of Buddhist practice, which is actually the one that's the biggest in the world. That like most people who would like, if you had to put on your census record, what your religious affiliation is. It's a type of Buddhism where a lot of people, when they think about Buddhism, they think of um, meditation and these like practices, and where actually the simple practice that's the most common worldwide, and we're talking like millions and millions of people, is actually repeating one phrase, right? Which is Namo Amida Bu. Okay, Namo Amida Bu, right? Which is essentially just an acknowledgement to. Some of them are repeating it with it. They don't know the backstory. They don't know why they are or why they say it or why their only practice is when they wake up and they walk out and they see the statue in their home and they say Namo Amida Bu, and they go on and they just live their day, right? But the
Hmm.
actual and what we're talking about there is having a particular sound, a particular phrase leave someone's lips to have an effect on them. The actual story of it is that, you know lifetimes, galaxies ago, even before dinosaurs, right? There was this like um, a being that spent his whole time, right? Lifetimes, kalpas. We're talking, and a kalpa, one kalpa is the amount of time it takes for a celestial being to come down with a piece of silk and wipe it across a large stone that's miles and miles long one little stroke of this fabric on that stone. Okay, how long it takes for that stone to wear down, right, from the celestial being come down is one kalpa, and he spent kalpas, like 20,000 kalpas, bowing to everything around him, right? Because he said, "Oh, actually, I see that this is Buddha. You are Buddha. This computer, this flower here, this next to me, this lamp here." And so he spent kalpas bowing, 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 acknowledging that I'm just a humble being, right? This isn't me. I'm not self-made. It's something else out there that's resonated me into existence and spent lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes doing that practice, right? Some people say, well, clearly that's not true. How does science prove that? Okay. You, you go, put that aside for a second. Put aside trying to explain it. You know what I mean? The effect that just that story itself can have on a human being is that, okay, well, the way the story goes is that he spent all that time, all those eons and eons and lifetimes and billions of lifetimes to then eventually, after doing that from a period, becoming, a celestial Buddha in the causal realm, right? And bizarrely, and most people won't know this, that one of the biggest followings of any religion worldwide, because you think about the amount of people in some of these like Asian countries, well, the way the story goes is all you must do in this lifetime that you're here now is call out and say Namo Amida Boo, right? Is you're called like the same way that people will say all you have to do is ask for forgiveness from Jesus to be saved, because actually here's the moral of the story: you're already saved. You don't have to do anything. You know what I mean? It's all a trick, but you know what I mean? No, but what they're saying is that acknowledge what he did, what that person spent kalpas and kalpas and kalpas doing to get to a place in the causal realm, right? That's not in the one we're in now, but when we talk about brain states and where you can end up in, is that okay, maybe in your next lifetime, you won't be completely enlightened, saved, whatever language you want to use. But in the next one, you will be born a little bit closer to him and his teachings. And, so like the way that story kind of goes, you go, well, of course there's no proof of it. You can't explain it rationally. It's a crazy story. But then you go, well, all of these people that their practice is simply to say those words, to have those words leave their lips. And when they do, they realize or they get a little bit closer to the fact that there's another power. There's something else out there. And this is how we acknowledge it, right? There's a mystery out there. I didn't get here on my own accord. Can't explain how it was done. You could go, well, mom and dad got me here. And then you go, okay, but how'd they get here? And all you got to do is keep going back and back and back. And then you end up with the fish that has his ear like we do. And you just go, well, the further you go back in the story, the crazier it becomes about how to try and put it into rational explanation of how we ended up here. So hopefully what that does is saying those words is gives us a sense of the awesomeness of that. It's not rational, you know. when you're watching a sunset and you're like, oh my God, it is nothing rational about that. It's there's this other power, right? So it's an acknowledgement of that. So what we are able to do through song, through language, through our marketing, through our every email we write, every word we share with the man at the shop who we don't know, you know what I mean, is this thing that like resonates through the universe. And what it should be is it just this bowing always to the other and the unknown to go. And whether you want to go and build a pyramid about it, or whether you want to go and chant the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Bu, Namo Amida Bu, some people, they spend hours a day doing that because they're like, I don't want to just say it once and not be sure that I get a closer seat to the party. I'm going to spend a good bit of my life, you know, reminding myself over and over that there's this great unknown out there that we're vibrating with, right? And that we resonate with, and that when we are in tune, when we have our radio tuned to like the channel of love, everything's just that little bit better. The sound is clear, and our interactions and how we, relate with each other, and how we notice the fact that we're in freedom. It's like we can snap our fingers and tap our feet along to that beat, you know? So sorry to go down the like with it, but that to me, when I think about like sound and resonating, it somehow always leads us back to that place to go, oh yeah, acknowledging that we don't know, it's bigger and greater than us. Dance along, you know? Of course we got to deal with all of our shit day in, day out that is like affecting all of us, and the hard decisions that we have to make based on like the way that governments resonate. They're not necessarily, when we think about us right now, you and I, we're both in a lockdown because we have people who have made a decision, and you go like, imagine if you could be in a room with the people who are making that decision, and trying to tune in to like the song that their beings are resonating out there. You go, it's clear, like it's going to be like a bunch of 1,000 radios tuned to different stations, and just like, so no wonder everyone's confused and uncertain. And um, so as us, all of us here that are, people we think we're like trying to be a little bit more switched on to things, we go, well, what's our frequency? What are we
Mm.
putting out there? What hill are we trying to die on? You know what I mean? It's like something out
Yeah,
there
and
that's
what is out there? What other options are there? Because one of the things that sort of, I, it gets me down when people choose one frequency or the other. It's like Ford, Holden, you know, left, right, blue, red. It's like, but there's so many other frequencies going on, and there's ones we're not even aware of yet. And there's ones like we mentioned earlier that ancient Egypt, people of that culture were tuned into, that we see the remnants of, but we don't actually understand what it was. And what were they tuned into? And if we go all the way back, what's the base frequency that we should be aligning with?
mm,
And how do you dance along with that? How do you
Y-
hear that to begin
Well,
with?
first, I think, I got to go back to the simple phrase that, enlightenment is to stop picking and choosing, right?
Mm.
You to go to to try and tune into a station, I think is part of where we can fall over. You know what I mean? Is to try and grasp and hold on to a point of view. Like, sorry to say it,
Exactly. And
but we go, can we open our can we be that like receptor or like a big satellite dish, right? That's just letting it all come in, and don't stop the mind on anything. Don't stop the mind on any one
mm,
decision. It's like, sorry, like, I think maybe it's actually worth just touching on, like, the video you shared the other day, but your own situation with that you're like, I gotta, there's a baby girl coming, you know what I mean? And I gotta like, like there's decision, like I actually have to like step into this body in this like and make a real decision about what's going to be the right thing to do here, right? And it's almost like
mhm,
what we can end up doing is like we stop our mind on one thing or one point of view or one way that the world is, and then all of a sudden everything gets that much harder because we go, well, this is, I'm going to try and jam
I'm gonna to stick to that.
well, I'm going to
Mm,
stick a square peg in a round hole, right? Because this
mm,
is my point of view, right? And it's almost like you have to go, well, we have to be fluid. We have to go like, we we we're a radio that has 1,000 songs trying to play on us all at once. You know what I mean? And it's like
mhm,
all we can do is be open and not be too rigid and not try and grasp any of it too tight, or not trying to always go back to nail jelly to the tree, you know what I mean, and go, this is it, because that's only going to ever end in disappointment, and pain and more suffering. So it's like we have to kind of go, whew. It's like the surfing analogy, right? It's like
mm.
you're going and
Yeah, you don't get attached to the wave
right,
because there's more and more
and
waves
and and
always
and the
coming.
wave is the same in the to go back to touch back on frequency. These waves are coming, right? And it's like we have
Hmm.
our view, then this other bit comes in, and then it kind of changes a bit, and then we go, well, you know, do do any of us want to conform, change, fall in line? No, we're not. We don't. None of us want to do that. We're not hardwired to be in that in any way. But then we also kind of go, well, there are some things that are like out of our control that we've got to that are bigger than us, you know, and take that for however you will, whether it's the government, whether it's a storm that comes in and is a hurricane that takes your home away from you, or you decide to build your home on the side of a cliff, and then all of a sudden a giant wave comes in and washes it away. You know what I mean? It's like so much of it is out of our control. So like the more we
Mm.
try and land on it or fully tune in and stay on that station for too long, we suffer. We
Mm.
have to be like the wave that the frequency that changes And we got, and I think like in a very like practical sense, because I always go back to like in any of these conversations, I go back to like some of the staple things around like our state of being, our stage of development that we're at, and how our stage and state interact, and then how that unfolds in our day, how we then show up in our daily life from that. It's like um, s- some of it you can control, but most of it we can't. You know, we are at we are the universe universing, and it has its own agenda that doesn't always fit with the song we want to sing. You know.
Hmm. Being adaptable to that is really important. I
Yeah.
thought we mentioned this the other day, Andy. Let's see if we how many people. I know we can have the both of us here, but I was wondering if you can have any more than two people on the live stream. I know Louise is here and Shaf is here. Maybe if you
Let's
guys
give it a shot.
can interact as well. Let's see if you want to.
Bring them in.
Um, well, yeah, it says allow guests to join the broadcast. Let's see. I can't actually do anything at the moment.
I think they have to request it, don't they?
Yeah, I think you have to request if you want to get on. But I mean, that would the reason why, I think it'd just be cool is that when you've got another energy coming into the mix, then
100%.
it changes the frequency
Of
again.
course.
And now none of us know where it's going to go. And I think that's really interesting. Um, One thing that was mentioned in the video yesterday, and I've heard this a lot actually from many people, and I'm surprised because, well, I'm not surprised actually because I've had this experience too. It's like I can't really talk to many people about this. You know, it's like they're
About what?
getting to start. Well, I think what it is more about just expressing whatever it is you're receiving, even though you don't know if it's real or not. You've got no proof of it. Maybe you haven't even applied it, or maybe you've had an experience and you have applied it, but no one else is able to tune into that.
Yeah,
And so most people give you a bit of a reaction rather than listen and,
yeah,
try on that song for a little bit.
and I think a bit of that, like from my experience, is that well, people wanna. That comes to people that want to land somewhere and they want to be able to kind of go, like my class, like you know me, I love to just go down a rabbit hole and ramble and kind of go somewhere, and there's not always there's not always a point. Someone's like, okay, sure,
Mm.
but I'm like, we're just going. We don't have to necessarily like land somewhere or have the answer. You know what I mean?
Mm.
It's just it's an exploration, and I think part of it is sometimes people don't want to they don't want to come like the best thing you can do is in the beginning admit that you know nothing. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And you're like, I don't know. I don't know any of it. I don't have an answer. And if someone tells you they do, be careful. You know, and then
Listen to me.
and
I
then
have the
yeah,
answer.
and then and look, and not to say that you shouldn't trust experts in their fields, right? If someone's highly developed in an area, right, then yeah, there's a reason we go to a doctor or a financial advisor or you know
Mm.
a physiotherapist or whatever. But
There's competency there.
yeah,
There's obvious competence.
yeah,
Yeah.
but always you know we know a lot less than we think we do.
Mm.
So, so it's good for people to, because, and that's where I think people sometimes, have a fear of getting into those discussions of the unknown is they go, well, I don't know. But really, it's like we again to go whether you're like whether you tackle it from like a like very scientific or like spiritual. Say if you just were to choose those two paths to try and explain anything, both of those at the when you have an expert in either one of those fields, they're going to say we don't know nothing. We don't know. We try to come up with our best guess, you know, and we don't land anywhere, and it get and the the story changes every day, and it gets as we turn over more pieces of the puzzle. I always go back to that puzzle
Mhm.
analogy. You get the 10,000 piece puzzle. You just you shake it out. First, you don't have any even idea what you're doing. You're just looking for pieces that look the same, and you go, okay, these are all the blue
Mhm.
bits. I think these probably go together, and then every you slowly start to put the great picture together, and then you might have a flash or a view of the box that you go, oh shit, that's the big picture that we're trying to get to, and then all these different little bits that we constantly add. But that's all it is. No, there's it's the infinity piece puzzle, right?
Mhm. I remember when What the Bleep Do We Know came out,
Mm-hmm.
and the second part to that, and I think the release was like an hour and a half or 2 hours or something like a normal movie, and then they had like 7 hours of interviews in the special features, right? So I'm one of those people. I've got to go through it all, and I'm trying to like find the answers, and hours and hours deep into it, you know, and putting all these pieces together, the similar thread was, well, we don't actually know. This is just a model we're using to try and understand things. And when we think we know that this is how it works, then we find that there's an exception to the rule, which throws it all out the window. So to hold on to that model, yeah, it's a useful model to a degree, and then it isn't after that. And so when, what I see a lot of is that, and we mentioned this the other day in martial arts, the Aikido guy with the skirt, you know, there's obviously an edge to that style, like there's an edge to every martial arts style. None is the ultimate, right? It's like rock, paper, scissors, one
Mm-hmm.
trumps another,
Yeah.
and then the other one trumps the first one. So, it's just a matter of your skill level in either or. But it's like, you know, if what is it Bruce Lee said in combat, if you go in with a plan to bite, it's a good way to lose your teeth. If you go in there and you hold on
I
to this
haven't heard
frame
that.
of mind.
I'm a
You haven't
huge
heard that?
Bruce Lee fan. I've never
I
heard
love
that.
it.
That's great. That's just
Yeah,
a rule
it
for
was,
life.
yeah, yeah. And so, because it's unpredictable, right? In a real life situation, you don't know what's going to happen, and no amount of training or black belts, stripes, whatever. In a real life situation, the total novice can be drunk, fall off balance, and throw a punch out of nowhere and knock you unconscious, right? It just is, that's easy. And life is doing that to us all the time,
Well, yeah,
when we think we figure it out.
and most of the time we're in the real gross realm, right? Because we're dealing with just
Mm,
like so it happens on a very gross level. But as we like quiet down, take time, whether it's through like reflection, contemplation, meditation, whatever the way you do it is that same thing happens at a more
mm,
subtle and deeper level of our existence. It's the same battle at those most subtle levels of picking and choosing and trying to grasp, you know, in our like spiritual practice. It's like it's almost like, oh, we reach date that we think is like, oh, okay, yeah, this is it. This is the magic place that I got to hang out in. You know what I mean? It's very comfortable and cozy here, so I'm going to just grasp on to this particular thing. But well, what is that doing? It's stopping you from going to a deeper and deeper place, right? Because it's like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
it's got to be cutting, cutting, right? Like it's not landing on anything or anywhere or trying to hold on and stay in a place in our day-to-day life with our views of what's happening out there in the world and at our most subtle place inside when we're like looking for peace or trying to have a really open heart. Well, I've got to that. Now, the minute you say, not it, not this, not that, that's one of the classic, I'm sure you've heard that in like the spirit, not this, not that. If you can stop there, you know, it's and that kind of might sound a bit like esoteric, but that's actually a very practical part of that experience as we like do any of those practices. It's like, people, I was chatting with a good buddy of mine, a guy who's become quite close because he's my neighbor and we sort of are in our like bubble in the neighborhood and we'll walk the dogs and run into each other and go for a walk, and he was talking about some of his experiences with meditation and um, about like wanting to find this place and get there, get to the place and
Mm,
stay there and like maintain it. He kept saying about that. He's like, oh,
mm.
I just what I find trouble doing is maintaining it. I'm like, oh, the minute you start maintaining it, you ain't in the right place, baby. Like, no, 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 no. Because if you can get a grasp on it, you know that it isn't the right picture. Same with any of our views, right? About our
Mm.
day-to-day stuff. It's like, let go of that. Because if you can grab it, it's not it. Because we're like a banana tree. It's hollow on the inside. There's no core. So,
You know what relates to this? Yesterday on Netflix, there's this show called, uh, I think it's Fantastic Fungi,
I I watched
all about
the first half
mycelium.
of it.
It is really good. So, um, what's his name? Paul, I think it's Stamens or something
Paul
like that. He's the
Stamets.
mushroom,
Stamets, I think he
Paul
is.
Stamens. Stamets. Yeah, the mushroom man. And he's
Yeah,
got the mushroom hat
he's been
and the
hanging out in the
glasses.
cow fields, I think, isn't he?
Wow, all over in the Amazon and also it's just really fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's right. Yeah, it is, Louis. Hey, let's see if we can get you on. Do you want to see if can we at least test to see
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if we can
Get
get a
her in
third
here.
person on here, Louise? Yeah, I'm trying to see because I've got you approved here, but can we get more people on at once? Or do we have to create a room?
If you have to kick me
I
out, feel
like your
free to.
comment. Well, all right, let's just stay there, Andy. We'll get you back if this doesn't
Yeah.
work. Oh, you're putting little one to sleep. All right. So if you want to come on and you're ready, let us know. Um, so the mushroom guy, actually, it reminded me of part of the story is you were talking about the impact of Hell's Bells. Well, the reason why he got into mushrooms is because he was reading a book on mushrooms. I can't remember the name of the book now. I have to watch the documentary, everybody. And he lent the book to a friend, and his friend was like from a Christian family. And the father found the book and he freaked out and burned the book. He didn't give the book back. He didn't, chastise him for having the book. He just burned it like it was
That's what you should do
evil,
with all
right?
bad information.
Just burn it, right? That's the devil. And and so instead of, being like, oh, that's probably bad, he goes, what caused someone to have such a strong reaction to something so simple? And of course, he goes, well, now I have to dedicate my life to this and investigate it. And I was just thinking, it's what we're doing with these talks, especially with this topic, because I said to you the other day, like we should just keep this topic going because we can talk about pretty much anything from any point and go to anywhere else and see other people's point of view of this particular topic. Um, it's we're exploring this. There's no like this is what I think and this is how it is and this is what you should believe too. Because like I said before, I really struggled. I'm like, how are we even going to approach this topic? Where's this going to
Yeah,
go?
yeah,
I think that's a valuable. I think that's a valuable approach to things.
I think it's an
To have that beginner's
invitation.
mind.
I think it's an invitation as well, right? Because it's like, like there's, you know, there are some things that we can agree on because you go, cool, enough people look through the microscope, to use my analogy, on like the three
Mm-hmm.
strands of deep science, that you go, this is our best belief on this is as far as we've got to, as far as like an explanation that's just a story that hasn't, we haven't put a period on this yet. This is the story so far. And feel free to contribute, but not just from the sidelines eating popcorn. Like, if you want to
Mm-hmm.
contribute, look through the microscope and really try and see, take the perspective and view it, and then bring your your input to it on things that we try and land on and not grasp, but hold in our hands and go, this is where we think we're at with such and such. I think this topic, though, that we're talking about sound and resonating, I go, this is a place you don't even really want to even attempt to land, because it's like saying, play the music that sounds good, would you, Brett?
How long is
You,
a piece of
you know what
string?
I mean? You,
Yeah.
you, you go, it's
Mm.
so like, it's like where we are on our own meter stick of our own evolution, combined with what state we're in at a particular time, and then with how the world that we have no, the universe that we have no control of around us bumps into our being at that time. The song is so different. You know what I mean? So you go like,
Mm-hmm.
so it's really like like I think of like a conversation like this is like the classic when you're sat around with your buddies having a couple beers and you're handing the iPod around. You play a song, then I play a song, and then you play one, and oh well, how did you react to that one? And you know what I mean? It's really just exploring different frequencies, different sounds, right? And I
Mm.
think that's the lovely part of the conversation, because you kind of go, well, there isn't a point. It's there isn't there isn't somewhere to land. The takeaway is the journey. You know what I mean? It's how all those different parts, it's how the song sounds to us, right? It's not a lesson in music. It's a listening session.
Mm. It's like a jam session,
Yeah, yeah,
actually,
yeah,
isn't
yeah,
it?
exactly. There you go.
And every now and then you go, oh, that sounded all right. Play that again.
Yeah.
And then they do that. And you go, oh, well, let's play that with this, and let's see where that happens. And then all of a sudden you've got a song happening. You probably would have you probably would have seen this with the dogs when you go to the beach and they meet other dogs and they start playing. There's no real structure to the game. They're just sort of mucking around.
And by the way,
They
just
seem to have a great time.
since we're on sound, right? Did
Mm.
you have you been able to hear? Can you hear that?
What am I listening for?
Oh, my dog's snoring like so loud.
Oh.
This is my 60-kilo beast. Sounds like two drunk men laying on a couch snoring at each other. It's just one dog. That's a frequency.
Marley's like that.
It,
She's like
it's
a,
a
yeah,
vibration.
I'm familiar. I'm familiar with it.
Believe
I
me,
got
you
my
don't
own
know. We
version
we
playing
we we
here
we,
every
we
night.
we've had to move into the to the guest house, mate, to sleep at night. Yeah. So yeah, look, I think
Oh,
what a fascinating topic. I think, anyone who's interested in that musical side, I tell you, the YouTube, go on YouTube and it's Hell's Bells and some tunes on there, man, AC/DC, Highway to Hell. You just go basically like telling the story that this is like the satanic group that's like, and I'm just like, no, man, that's just an awesome song.
you mean like Australia, one of Australia's national treasures, AC/DC, is
Yeah,
Satanic Groove.
yeah. And
Uh,
the one of my favorite bits from it, this is just a funny little memory, is there was, and you might remember this, like the satanic panic of like the early 90s and all that. And, like the big thing was all the hidden messages in the music and the songs like being played
yeah.
backwards and all that. And I remember like one record that was like a huge part of like our upbringing, because my dad had this awesome record collection, was Queen, News of the World, right?
Hmm.
Amazing record. Like it was this big gatefold like album that you would open up, and the imagery on it, like anyone who's interested, Queen, News of the World, look it up. And it had some of the classic songs on it, right? Um, and I forget what song it was. Was it "We Will Rock You" or no? It was another one, "Bites the Dust," I think. If when you played it
Hmm.
backwards, right? And literally, we would do it. You put it on the record player, and you put your finger on, and you're like, okay, let's test this out. And it did sound remarkably like he was saying, "Start to smoke marijuana." Like dead set, you know what I mean? It was like, and you had to get it at the right sort of like speed and timing. And it was like, we were like, whoa, man. Like, it was like, holy crap. Um, but and when I think about that, I go, if that was the case, if it was intentional, it was probably just one of their simple. They're probably having a laugh about that, going like,
A gag.
most people
Yeah.
out there could probably use a joint to loosen up, not take life so seriously, and maybe notice something different than the world that you could have imagined, this sort of really straight-laced world of like the 70s for most people that were like shocked by like rock and roll at the time, right? It was like they're like, hey, you saw the Beatles? Well, we're gonna give you something a little bit even more wild than that. Elvis Presley shaking his hips. We'll try this on besides. Here's Freddie Mercury. You know what I mean? Like, um, and yeah, I mean, we could do a whole like deep dive on just music and the journey of music and its effect on us and like how it has literally been just a conduit for like development in so many ways, right? In like, you know, like
Mm,
the spiritual awakenings that have happened like through sound. I was actually one thing, actually just saying that, I think back to a couple of like really, you know, to use really, I don't know, like a scientific way of saying it, like a peak experience. Like if you look at, for example, if you want to use like Maslow's hierarchy, he talks about peak experiences in different religious ways. They talk about an enlightenment experience or you know, someone saw God or whatever. However you want to like whatever, however you want to rearrange the 26 letters to explain this
mhm,
physical experience of resonating with the oneness of the universe. You know what I mean?
mhm.
Um,
Beautiful. Yep.
Sound for me, like in my own life, this has been like a massive part. I have, there's a couple of songs. They're not even like my favorite songs or anything, but timing, place, people,
Mm,
setting
yes.
in the right place at the right time, primed, karma lined
Yep.
up in a funny way, and my sound consciousness heard a particular
And
vibration, and
mhm,
you know, you have this life altering experience, right? Where you go, well, I can't
mhm,
unsee that. Like
mm,
once you feeling that oneness, then you end up spending your time chasing, trying to find the answer of what the frick that was. You know what I mean? Like, what was that? You know, give me more of that. And that was like for me, like there's a few. One of them was in Byron Bay years ago, and I'm sat with my buddy. I had a buddy that was visiting me from Canada, and we were sat around and just listening to music, and he was kind of putting songs on, and we were just talking about the universe, and like we just kept asking the question of like, well, what is this? Like, what's going on here? Like, literally, just in a very practical sense of like, what the heck are we? Like, like
mm,
looking around at like at the setting and going like, come on, like let's admit that 99.9% of our time we're just like ignoring the fact that this is this freaking great mystery, and everybody's just going around like it's
like
just
it's business as usual.
like it's business
Mm,
as usual. Like, are we not like wondering what the fuck is going on here? That like awesome like being like under, you know, realizing the awesomeness of it, recognizing the mystery, right? And like that moment, and
mm,
he's like, oh, and he puts this song on, right? And for anyone who's interested, it's a song called Rebebula by a band called Mo. I had never heard them before. I like that song now. I'm sentimental about it. They're not particularly like
mm,
my favorite band or anything. I don't listen to any of the other songs, but he put that on, and timing, place, the vibration, and it was like a fireworks show started going off. There was a bush
mm.
turkey that jumped up on the fence, jumped into the backyard, and came into the living room. It was like it was all happening. You know what I mean? And I was like, it was like the curtains had got pulled back, and the cosmic joke was revealed, and you
Mm,
know, for that like 14 minutes, you know, and then as it like fades away, you're kind of going, oh, wait a second, I felt like I had it there. I felt like it all kind of, and then it like slips through your fingers, and then you know what I mean? Like, and that then like resonates with you for
Mm.
years.
That starts to change you. Yeah, you start to integrate. It takes ages to integrate an experience like
You
that
know, it
sometimes.
was like you saw behind the Wizard of, like you saw the wizard.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And
On
right? So it's like that, like that's music, right? That's
mm,
sound that can have that effect, right? And I think that's what, just to kind of like probably the last I have to say about the topic of that, like resonating in sound and music. I go, well, art, right? It like music is art, and what any great art should do, in my opinion, is raise your level of vibration. It should give you it should change your state, not necessarily
mm,
into any particular state. It's not, but what it should do is it's like looking at a piece of art, or the same way you hear a sound. It should, it should cause a reaction, right?
mm,
When that, whether it's visual consciousness or ear consciousness, a sound hits your ear consciousness, it should then make you, it should wake you up a little bit. It should
mm,
shake the cobwebs off, right? So that's what sound has the power to do, when whether it's through, it's like, you have these all-time great spiritual teachers, right? The Buddha, or choose whoever, you know what I mean? That you go, that's their song, right? That's their song, that when those 26 letters at that particular tone in a frequency hit someone in a way, makes them go, oh yeah, shakes you out of this your sleepwalking zombie act that you've been playing, the like that this is just some normal thing going on. It's like a reminder that, what is this, right? And I think that's what the Egyptians were pointing to with their
mm,
monuments. I think it's what a lot of these great spiritual traditions and mystics and sages through the ages were trying to say, or trying to point. They're trying to like get you to look over here at this.
mm.
They're not. They can't give it to. They can't. They can't give you this. They can't give you where to land, because it's, you know you're like,
Well, it's not even necessarily look where to look. It's like you mentioned the record playing backwards and having subliminal message. And I remember when I first heard about that and everyone jumping up and down, oh, we're being influenced without our knowledge. And
yep.
yeah, well, yeah. But at the same time, my thinking was, I didn't even know my brain could
Interpret that.
uh, interpret that. Like, how is it that my brain can hear something playing backwards, forwards in time, and reverse it, become aware of it when my conscious awareness isn't, and actually act on that? How does that work?
Um, my teacher in his
And
home,
just
he's got the
just
he's got the sorry, just to
yeah,
answer what
yeah,
you were just saying there. He has this little saying that's
yeah.
like pinned on the wall. It says, "Everybody sees everything all of the time." Right? But
Mm,
you
nice.
know what I mean? We don't know. Like, so you're going like, how does it? It's like, dude, somewhere in there is everything from since you were in the belly, right? And it's,
Hmm.
I'm sure you've done that. You woke up from a dream and gone like, oh yeah, no, actually, that did happen. That was this thing that was buried deep in my subconscious somewhere. But it's like, man, these are the best recording devices ever. You think Facebook's listening? You think the algorithm's listening? The universe is listening.
Yeah,
You know?
imagine that's why. Yeah, yeah, because like people say with enough spiritual training, you can tap into the Akashic records. I was like, well,
I've always been
where does
fascinated
that
by
come
that.
from?
I've
Well,
always
it
been
probably comes
fascinated by
from,
that.
well, it probably comes from every living being that's been, taking in everything that they've taken in and goes somewhere, like an internet server somewhere in the sky, for example. Um, or, it could actually be every tiny piece of, you know, every vibration of string, if you like look at string theory, has an awareness too. So you could basically put your awareness in any particular point in time or space ever.
Or if you're eating a bowl of
Um,
soup, right, and you happen to be the one that gets the curry leaf.
oh shit.
That's in there.
And yeah, I'm glad you said that because I remember an example. People were like, I know, I don't know if I can do this. I hear other people can do it, but I don't know if I can do it. I'm having trouble visualizing. And the example I heard was, all right, look, this is how it works. Imagine yourself in your kitchen. And I go, you got that? You go, yeah. Open the fridge door, take out a lemon, lick the lemon. And everyone went, ugh, in the audience, right? It's like, well, that's just as simple as that. Simple as putting your mind there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so, but the thing is, most people get so caught up on the content that they're missing the whole apparatus that does that and how amazing that is. So like we go back to the subliminal message on Queen record going backwards saying smoke more marijuana, right? How do you how does your brain do that? You know, that should be the fascination. Like, how does it actually do that? What is going on in that brain of mine? What's it actually doing that I'm not even aware that it's
In a
doing? What
supercomputer.
when I go to sleep, it's a supercomputer. So, and here's the amazing thing is there's a veil in it that allows your personality to think and do whatever it does. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, it's doing something completely different, maybe, you know? So it's like, all right, well, how do we tap into that? Because that sounds a lot more interesting to pay attention to than left and right, blue and red, Ford and Holden, right and wrong,
Mm.
good and evil,
Macintosh and Microsoft.
Macintosh and Microsoft,
Pfizer, Moderna.
Um, yeah, that was so weird. Now people are talking about what brand of vax they're getting. It's like, what? What? And yeah, so like, isn't it interesting? Like, if our brain can do all that, then what else can it do? Like, I was thinking about going back to the ear and the bones in the ear. And it's like, okay, this is a technology that's millions of years old. If
Billions.
you,
Come on,
according to
billions.
billions, probably. All right, okay, thank you. Timeless, right? And we're using it to hear stuff, but what else can it do? You can't just have one function, can it? Because I mean, you look at the camera on the phones, the evolution of a camera on the phone. The camera got better and better and better, and could zoom in and zoom out, and then you could do color change with it. You can do all sorts of things with that. And if you look at just your stereo on your computer, or if you got one of the old amplifiers, you got all the, you can mess a lot with the sound.
Mm.
you know. And we've got this thin sliver of bandwidth, vibration band that apparently our ears can pick up and can't pick up, but the brain can pick it up, even if we're not registering it in our awareness. Because dogs can hear frequencies that we can't, and we can hear frequencies that dogs can't. You know,
Well,
like what else can it
well,
do?
yeah, and I think that's like, part of when I think about dreaming, right? Is that you go like
Mm,
like sometimes you hear this, when you might have this like vivid, this crazy like vivid dream that's so real, and it's like, you're like a month into this storyline in this dream, and it was from this like thing that you heard as someone like passed you in the in Woolies. You know what I mean? Like just something just went in there, and to you it was just like whatever. And it's not until waking up from that dream and going like, how the fuck, where did that come from? Right? This whole world, right? That isn't that at times creates feeling inside of us like that is it's almost as vivid as this one, right?
hmm
Sometimes more. And you're like, that was just passing, just little pink, you know? And I go, whoa. So yeah, same. And I go, let's also remember that it's like, the you can't really separate it out from the rest of them. We just do because it's easier to teach them that way, like the five senses. But they all like that's all.
The synesthesia.
You know what I mean? Like they all come together in one, you know, like in our mind, right? Our mind,
Mm,
our whole experience of everything is just that's like one of the ingredients. So how it is affected in relation to the other ones is a whole other like greater, because what you start to do is you go, well, what happens with like sensory deprivation? And when you start
mm,
to take away one sense, how does another get amplified, and how does the experience of the mind change in relation to the other ones, right? So someone who was born with all senses then loses one, and then all of a sudden they hear music in a different way, or they see things differently, and then like, have you ever been in you've been in a float tank, you go like
mm,
sound, like vibration and sound and things, especially if you're like in one of those, because a lot of them, the newer ones, they'll play like a little bit of music like at the end of the float tank. So you're like in this altered state that you've been put in because your body is suspended in salt water and you're floating, and then your vision's been taken away. So the sense of feeling in your body's gone, and there's no vision. And then you're not even aware that you've been sat there listening to silence, right? There's a
mm.
sound of, there's a vibration of silence. It's like
The
zero,
Sound of Silence.
right?
There was a song about
It's
that.
a great tune. Yeah. And so you go, and then to go from that to then when the little like soft little meditation song comes on to remind you that, hey, it's 10 minutes, you got to get out of here, the next guy's coming in. um it's like, whoa, that is like resonates in your toenails, right? So it's, yeah, so to go, what else can it do? I think that's a massive question. It's like, what does the Tesla bot
Mm,
do? Don't know. I'm sure it's just something
mm,
interesting. I think that we do. I think we're more interesting
hmm Yeah, by far.
at this point, anyway. I mean,
Mm. But like you said, most of us are walking around like business as usual, just a meat sack, just transportation for my head to get from one place to another.
I'm just carrying around my secretary. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. But yeah. But in saying that, when you say that, I think it's things like music or like that's like such an like it's like we all know how it
we've all experienced that.
it's like the easiest, like, maybe not everyone to the same we're not all like in the middle of the crowd at a Grateful Dead concert, like whoa, like doing
Mm,
that, but like most people know that, they hear a song and it reminds them of that person or that time or that feeling they had,
mm.
and they have this and their state changes, you know?
We've all been moved by music for sure. Yeah, 100%.
And man, you put it on a Qantas commercial and it's just like, oh my God.
We tied it all the way back in. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Man, another
Hmm.
interesting evening, another great chat. Let's um let's try and figure out our like tech stuff and how we can bring some others in or swap them,
Yeah.
like, swap them out. And this is just the beginning, man. I think we're on to something interesting. And sorry again about last night because it was a crazy day in the
That's right.
universe, and it sounded like you
It,
guys
it
made the
opened up
most
a
of
new
it, and
possibility.
exactly.
Mm.
So let's keep it flowing, and um, maybe should we touch on like the thoughts we've been having about some of the Energetic Arts Academy stuff, since you did make a
Sure.
post about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
yeah, so we've
For
been
sure.
been chatting about some different workshops that could be fun to do. Um, we've got a whole list of we've got a laundry list of things we want to do and share and collaborate on with the people in the community that want to like co-contribute and kind of workshop some of the things that we've touched on a little bit and go really really deep on them, and really, instead of just touching the surface, like anything, I think about the iceberg where you go, this is the little bit that pokes at the top, but the real stuff is like when we can get around, whether it be a virtual table or a real table with other people, and we all start to take some of this stuff with some structure that we've got some structures already lined up around a few different topics or areas that we want to deep dive into, but where we can have some co-collaboration following the structure, and then where we take away from those um, meetings, or like, I don't mind the word like workshop, like I like workshopping things. I think it's like
Mhm.
what we do is we kind of start with where we want to go and a framework, but depending on who and what ends up in that kind of container that we create together, we go, we're going to come out of, we have an idea of what we're going to come out of them with when we talk about topics like um, state, for example, where we go, cool, we can go on a little journey that everyone's a part of, but people are then going to come away with some tools in their tool belt that they can take with them on their spiritual journey, if it's to apply it there or in different aspects of their life. So yeah, I guess want to see what the interest is from people, see
Mhm.
who's into it, and maybe we won't go too far down that an explanation now. It's better to create a little bit of like, ooh, and then the people who are interested, they can reach out and we can kind of say, here's what here's what our thoughts are with it. But I know for me personally, some of the stuff that I'm super passionate about sharing is, you know, stuff around the entrepreneur's journey, because that's, how I spend most of my time is building businesses, being in businesses, consciously creating wealth, um, from a spiritual place, because for me, all of that is just a, it, it's how we show up as spiritual beings in the world with a vision that's bigger than who we are and how it affects our own life. It's like, okay, do we really want to make a big difference in this lifetime? Cool. One of the great ways that we know we can do it is through business, through employing great people in great organizations, helping them reach financial freedom, and bringing our vision to as many people as we can in the world. So whatever anybody's vision is, if it's something that's bigger than just going, yeah, I want to make a bunch of money, um, there's a whole skill set around how to do that. And what I've seen is that you go, oh, what works in this industry over here can work over here and over here and over here. It's a skill set that we can learn, and it becomes, for me, another part of how we show up in the world and how we make our 24 hours a day a spiritual practice, right? So it's like, if we can make our work and our contribution to the world that we get rewarded financially part of our spiritual journey, well, then it isn't just something we do when we're sitting on the meditation cushion or saying a prayer at night, or however your own journey works for you. So that's one area I really want to explore. We've talked about a bunch of other ones that yeah, like I said, we have a laundry list. So if people are interested, let us know, and let's collaborate and do this journey together.
Yeah, for sure. We've already had some feedback of people wanting to get on board and be leaders or contributors. So we'll see how it all pans out. I'm excited to see where it's going to go. I'm excited to reach out into that and explore that space. And I think having you know, bring the entrepreneurial stuff is really key, because one thing that I know for me that always interrupted my practice and me pursuing all these and exploring all these ideas was having to come back and make the money, pay the rent. You know, what's the saying? Uh, Climb the mountain, fetch the water. Just before enlightenment,
Chop wood,
after the
chop wood,
enlightenment.
carry water.
That's the one. Chop wood, carry water. You've got to sort of integrate that into your life, into your practice. You know, and it pains me to see people, and I know people in this group who are doing it really hard. Maybe they're working jobs they don't like, or two jobs. They're working really hard for not much money. Um, and I've been there, done that, and it's not a great place to be when you're having to divide your life in two and carve out time, just to explore your passions and your practice. When you can start to make that part of your practice, and you don't have to choose between one or the other anymore. They blend together.
Mm-hmm.
um, and you're doing something that they say be passionate about it, but maybe it's on this practice it's not always fun either. It's not always pleasant, but at least if you know that you're in line with that process and you're covering your lifestyle at the same time, and even if better, you're actually making a good income and you're investing, and maybe you get to the point where you don't need to work so hard
Mm-hmm.
to maintain your lifestyle and continue your practice, then I would feel a hell of a lot better you know, everyone in this group was in that position, because then we could really get into some cool stuff, because that's not a distraction anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's exciting. So let's keep maybe, yeah, like if there's a group, like if I'm sometimes challenged with finding stuff in the group that's been posted before, because I remember you posted the thing
Mm-hmm.
and I remember seeing there's a couple of people that were interested. So what might even be interesting is even we just do another layer of this, which is a private conversation. Like we start
Mm-hmm.
a chat that's in our messenger feed or whatever for people who are, and we can post some of what our
Mm-hmm.
ideas are, start to collaborate with the people who are interested, the people who go, yeah, want to contribute, awesome. The people go, hey, I want to go on that ride and see what we're exploring. So let's just keep going with it, see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, sounds good.
Thank you so
All
much,
right,
mate. Great to chat.
thank you.
Thanks to anyone that was listening, watching, or that chooses to tune in later. Hopefully, we didn't bore you too much.
Man, time flies, doesn't it?
What time is it?
And time distortion. It's like we've been on there nearly 2 hours.
Time is
There you go.
cool.
It's another frequency, isn't it?
Yep.
All right. Thanks,
May
Andy.
all
Thanks
beings
for
be well and
tapping in.
happy.
And
Thank you.
thanks for your attention, everyone. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now.